After 28 days, the first international team of divers is relieved. The Russian Navy, constantly nearby with its vessels, coordinates the crew changes. The Mayo has a pressure tank aboard in which the divers live, sleep, and eat after their work on the Kursk. Each diver works 6 hours per day. While 3 divers are at work down below, the others can rest or eat. They fully depend on each other during this entire time. The work is proceeding smoothly. After several weeks, all holes have been cut, and a start can be made with the removal of the nose. The Mayo has now been joined by the pontoon with the cutting equipment. First, the suction anchors are lowered. These anchors must be placed exactly in the right position next to the submarine. Slowly, the heavy equipment is lowered to a depth of 100 meters. Up above, on board of the Mayo, the positioning is being carefully monitored. Divers are working continuously to place the anchors properly. The work goes on around the clock. Once the anchors have been placed, the cutting wire can be lowered. The divers place the heavy wire across the nose of the Kursk, then attach it to the anchors on both sides. The wire has to be placed in the precise correct position. The separation of the heavily damaged nose and the hull is a must before the lifting work can be started. The nose might break during the lifting operation, causing instability that could generate unexpected forces on the lifting units. In theory, the 2 suction anchors suck themselves by vacuum into the seabed of the Barents Sea. At the same time, the cutting wire is moved forwards and backwards by means of the hydraulic cylinders. After an hour, the cutting wire is turned off to view the result thus far. When the underwater camera is lowered, the situation becomes clear. The wire is doing great work. It's lasted even longer than expected. The salvors continue with good hope. First priorities of the project team throughout the operation were the safety of all personnel on the scene and the protection of the marine environment. An independent radiological protection team of British and Belgian nuclear and weapons experts was on hand. Constant monitoring of all equipment and personnel at the scene during the entire operation confirmed no radiation leakage from the Kursk reactors. Every recorded level was well within the acceptable range for background radiation. When the nose is fully cut off at last, final preparations for lifting can start. Divers clear all debris from the holes. With special equipment, the remaining cables and pipes between the inner and outer hull are removed. These are the last preparations made on the hull of the Kursk to ensure safe and successful installation of the grippers. At this point, weather conditions are quite favorable for the salvors. In spite of the fact that the Giant and the Mayo experience high waves every so often, most of the time the team members can continue their job. Slowly but surely, the lifting units are being prepared for the finale. Within a couple of days, it will be clear whether the lifting units that have been developed, constructed, and tested for months will also function in actual practice. The system is inspected for the umpteenth time, and the compensator system undergoes one more check. Tension is rising. Before the next phase can begin, the salvage team is faced with a solid setback. The wind is picking up. A storm is on the way. This means that the work has to be interrupted. In anticipation of the upcoming weather, the equipment is secured where possible to withstand heavy sea motion. Any damage or loss of equipment could have serious consequences for the entire operation. When everything has been secured, the team can do nothing but wait. The wind picks up to gale force. Several crew members nonetheless manage to go on deck to lash down some more pieces of equipment.
Wacht op het weer, hè? Dat is de uitdrukking voor WOW, waiting on weather.
The storm holds on for 24 hours, but in the morning, the sun breaks through and a rainbow appears on the horizon. The weather forecast looks favorable for the time being, and the crew begins immediately to undo the fastened equipment. 2 crawler cranes are used to unroll the 4 guide cables. Later on, the plugs will be lowered along these cables. They ensure that the plugs will not twist during their journey to a depth of 100 meters. The guide cables are attached to a ring in sets of 4. The divers then affix the rings to guiding cones which are installed on each hole. Doing so, the grippers can slide in easily. When correctly aligned, the gripper units will be hydraulically opened up and clamped under frames in the inner hull. Slowly but surely, the plugs inch their way down to be positioned in the holes. As the 0 hour approaches, the tension on board rises. As the first plugs are attached, the compensation system is also put into operation. The compensators with the strand jacks on top absorb the rocking of the Giant on the sea waves.
Hetzelfde geldt eigenlijk ook voor 4.6.
4.6 om 5 uur, oké.
Almost every gripper has a unique shape and has to be inserted at a different angle. The crew on deck and the divers below function as a smoothly operating team, and after 4 days, 13 plugs have been installed. 2 days later, the last of the 26 plugs has been lowered. For the divers, months of working around the clock finally came to an end. More than a year has gone by since the Kursk landed on the sea bottom. Now, shortly before the submarine is to be pulled loose, the salvage team pauses to reflect on the victims who are still on board. A commemoration plaque and a wreath are lowered onto the Kursk.
Ben je er klaar voor?
Alles klaar voor Jan, alles even vast in mijn leven.
Divers, everything is ready, iedereen is standby. We can start to lift.
The final phase has begun. The command is given to start the actual lifting process. The traction on the Kursk is gradually being raised.
Komt-ie?
We're getting nervous.
Hij is hem losgekomen, prikkelt dan nog een door.
Increase the load now and keep the COG of the total lift because it's the same location, okay?
Ja, zo Roger, go for
Hij is los! Hij is los!
Pas op, Jan.
Blakhout, allemaal!
After 8 hours, success is already at hand. At 3:45 Moscow time during the night of October 8th, the Kursk comes loose from the seabed. Air bubbles evidence that the Kursk is moving. 9,000 tons of traction is needed to pull the hulk loose from the sea floor. It takes another 10 hours for the submarine to ascend the 100 meters that separate it from the bottom of the Giant. The heave compensating system works properly. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the Kursk is secured firmly against the bottom of the Giant. This calls for a little party on board. The most critical part of the entire operation, pulling the Kursk loose from the sea bottom, has been successfully completed. As soon as the Kursk hangs firmly underneath the Giant, the journey towards the harbor of Murmansk is begun. The tugboat Smidvai Singapore pulls the Giant Kursk combination towards the Russian harbor. The combination arrives in Murmansk after 2 days. Accompanied by the Peter the Great, a flagship of the Russian Navy. In the final phase of the operation, the submarine will be brought to a dry dock near Murmansk. Because the draft of the Giant 4 with the Kursk underneath is deeper than the floor of the dock, the Giant Kursk combination will have to be lifted. To achieve this remarkable lift, 2 massive submersible pontoons are to be built. The natural buoyancy will raise the pontoons together with the Giant Kursk combination and sail it into the floating dock. There, the lifting units will place the Kursk gently onto the supports. The Giant Kursk combination remains in the middle of the Bay of Murmansk, while the pontoons are slowly positioned on either side. The next step is to sink the enormous pontoons by flooding them with water. Slowly, the pontoons descend further into the water. Once they've sunk deep enough, they're moved underneath the Giant. As soon as the pontoons are underneath the Giant, they're pumped full of air. Slowly, they come upward. It has become cold in this northern part of Russia. After months of hard work, fatigue is starting to show its face here and there. When the pontoons are full of air, they have lifted the Giant Kursk combination more than 6 meters. The combination is thus far less deep into the water and will fit into the dock. Several tugboats push and pull the Giant slowly in the direction of the dock. The Russian Navy is meanwhile lending the salvors a helping hand. Dozens of sailors are now involved to assist in getting their lost comrades into the dry dock. Soon, the combination lies in the dock. The Kursk is back home. The Giant can leave the dock once again, but before that takes place, the salvage team honors the victims one last time.
Nagedachtenis, ons gevallen collega's, zeevarenden aan boord van de Kursk, vraag ik jullie even uw stilte na het gooien van deze krans.
Here ends a successful operation in which numerous innovations were needed to overcome the many challenges. Raising the Kursk is a story of technological ingenuity, perseverance, and courage in a fight against time and the elements by specialists from many countries.